That was an absolutely fun, agonizing, and exhausting week. You ready to do it again?
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very fun show today. We're actually going to do two. So make sure you are checking your feed. This first one is going to be focused on Game 5. Then we're going to do a second one to focus in on the ALCS. But first, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today.
Might as well just get the intros out of the way then, Jeff, because we know what we're doing.
I'm just going to do the one people like from Friday again. No, I'm not going to risk getting in trouble. Okay, I'm not going to do it. So I'm Jeff Ellis. I was your one of the original hosts here at Locked On in terms of baseball. Before that, I was nationally recognized draft and prospect analyst at Scout and 24/7, and I don't have a number to go today. I'll say I was your fifth favorite blogger at every Cleveland sports blog that has or will exist.
I'm Justin Latta. I've been going here 2 years now. My first time here with Jeff I was a guest on with Jeff before at different times, probably the longest reoccurring guest until I became a regular. But I've been here since 2022 with Jeff, and this is our first LCS together. This is our first Division Series win together. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007, mostly at Guardians Baseball Insider and the News Herald and the Morning Journal, where I've covered some minor league championships. I've covered some great minor league playoff series. I have never seen, I shouldn't say never, I've never covered a series quite like this one, I have to be honest. That was absolutely and mentally exhausting, fun, agonizing. It was hard to watch those last couple of innings just because it was just, you just didn't know what was going to happen. Like even after Lane Thomas's grand slam, the Tigers fought back. Give them credit. They fought back. I really didn't think that the Tigers had it in to score 4 or 5 to overtake the Guardians in that game, but they sure put some pressure on them, and maybe the Guardians put some pressure on themselves, how they handled the game. We'll talk about that. But they were in spots, and it was a tough series. So I think you could say the Guardians have earned where they're at this point. Like, for all the things that we've talked about this season, right? Like fighting for the best record, their August that was absolutely atrocious offensively, and the starting rotation had its issues throughout the year. All the things this team went through this year, you cannot say they don't belong at this point. Like, you can say it's unexplainable and how do they keep doing this, but no matter how much they're down by, no matter what's going on in the game, I think you have to believe this team's got a chance. The way they played in that LD or Division Series, like, believe in Guards ball, man.
Yeah, I mean, there was every reason for people to doubt them, right? You're down. You got to win the next 2, and you got to face the best pitcher on the planet to do it. And then you get down in Game 4, and they keep coming back, and they keep coming back. And that Detroit Tigers team, great young players all over the place. They're going to be a really tough team for a lot of years. They're just figuring things out now. They have more and more talent coming, so kudos to them. But Cleveland just, kept performing, kept stepping up, kept finding the big hit. For everyone at the deadline who was like, hey, this team didn't do enough. I'll point out again that, like, no superstars were traded at the deadline, and Cleveland did pretty well, I think. Like, if you're like RBIs, again, maybe not the best stat in the world, I've stated, but Lane Thomas did lead the division series in all of baseball with 2 monstrous hits, and they, had a single to knock in one more just for good measure, in a game that became tighter than any of us wanted it to be. It was that Game 5. We were just in our little text group stressing, and then it was just nice to be able to be like, all the happy swear words.
I had to not text some people back on Saturday during the game. I had some friends over to watch it. We were having a good time, getting ready for it. Was supposed to be a great sports day, and it was half a good sports day for me in this house because the Ohio State lost. That's not what we're here to talk about.
Blue Jackets won their first game of the year on the positive of Columbus.
So, yeah, good for them. I had to cut off communication with some people on Saturday because it was just a nonstop flood of when bad things happened. It was a nonstop flood of, well, this guy's not doing well, and this is the end of the season. See you next year, and this guy's velocity's down, and this is where it ends. Save the text. I had to just be like, you know what? I'm stepping away from social media. I'm stepping away from texting. Like, just watch the game, see how it plays out, and talk about it after the game. Because even being on social media last week for this series was super tough because every game wasn't going to be like game one where they scored 5 runs before making it out. Everybody was happy and positive and thought this is going to be a great series. And that was a great inning. It was a great game for Cleveland, but you had to realize that every game wasn't going to be like that. And there's going to be highs and lows and of extreme measures in that series. Like, there are highs and lows in a 6-month season. There are going to be immense highs and lows in a pressure-packed 5 and 7 game series. So you've kind of got to just keep even keel, see how things play out. And the one thing I keep going back to is that, again, this team continues to be resilient. Neither one of you and I thought David Fry belonged in that situation against Bo Brisky and hit that home run. Like, neither one of us thought he belonged in that situation for different reasons. We both thought that Manzardo should be up for different reasons in that situation. And we didn't think Vogt played the cards right. But guess what? We were wrong. And we said on Friday, like, better to be lucky than good. And I'm happy to be proven wrong because it was a fun game and a fun outcome. The same thing with Lane Thomas. Like, I'll let you go into it more, but, back in August, I was talking about Lane Thomas. I was like, do you go into the winter thinking that they're going to non-tender Lane Thomas? Because August was so bad. And there was a good conversation between him and Stephen Vogt. Lane Thomas shared this after the game on Friday with the media, and he said that, like, he had a home run against Kansas City one game, and then the next day he wasn't in the lineup. Mm-hmm. And he was used to playing every day for the Nationals. So he went to Vogt, and he was kind of like, all right, well, what's the deal here? Like, I had a home run yesterday. What's my role? I'm good with doing whatever you want me to do, but, like, give me some sort of explanation of why I'm not in the lineup today or what you want me to be prepared for. And Vogt was like, well, we got guys that can hit righties. And he, like, kind of challenged him. He said, do what you got to do to get yourself in the lineup every day. And for Lane Thomas, like, that worked. He was kind of challenged to force his way into the lineup every day. And yeah, he's probably not always going to be as good against righties as he is lefties. Same with David Fry. But David Fry's found a way to be productive at times, and so has Lane Thomas. And like you were saying through text, like, has there been anybody who has done a total 180 in terms of what the trade looked like to what it looks like right now? Because I did say there's a chance that the way he was playing, Lane Thomas might have been non-tendered this winter. And he has made all of that go away very quickly in September and in this first round.
Yeah, I mean, let's be very honest about Lane Thomas. No matter what happens with the other pieces in that trade, they won this deal. And here's the thing, both teams can win. That can happen. That can totally happen. Because Cleveland probably doesn't get a 2 seed. They probably have to face Detroit in the opening round without Lane Thomas and what he provided offensively down the stretch. And if you got to face Detroit in the opening round, they probably don't advance. Like, no knock on this team. I hope no one views that as negative. It's hard when you only need to win 2 and you're seeing Skubal for, like, the first time in months. Like, what happened the first time they faced him would have been very, very hard to get out of this series. Like, maybe, yeah, they were able to do what they do in game 2, but, like, it would have been tricky. It would have been a very hard matchup for Cleveland. So he gets you the 1 seed, he gives you that, or the 2 seed, I should say, gives you that advantage, and then just comes up huge time and again in the postseason. So I was talking with Justin, maybe someone out there will have better memory than I. But right now, like, I was thinking about what are the best trades that have ever happened at the deadline, and it's trading Westbrook to get Kluber is probably the best deadline deal of their last, however many years, because you got all those years of Kluber. But then it's, of course, Andrew Miller. And it's like, I think he's up there with that. You brought up Kenny Lofton in 2007, who was just a steadying force for them. But Thomas has been great. They have him for all of next year. That's the other nice thing. This wasn't a rental. Like, this is the guy who they're going to have for the next year and a half. And, he was hurt at the start of the year. And a year ago, he was an all-star. And I'm not sure, last year I didn't want to trade for him because I thought he'd cost too much and was playing a bit over his head. So he'll find a gap, I think, between how most of his numbers look this year and how he was the year before into a solid above average bat. And, he didn't shy away from, it was challenge accepted and he proved it. And then I think the other interesting thing is just how much he integrated into the clubhouse. Like, That was a tight clubhouse, and it's very clear from every Zach piece that he immediately found his way in, that he is just one of them like everything else. If I have to read one more story about Rocky Top with Zach, it'll be the most I've read about anything this year on the team. I feel like it's not to make fun of anyone, but it's just like that comes up so much. And I think that kind of also speaks to, if that keeps coming up, that is what he is hearing about or hearing music wise. So it sticks out. But I think it's interesting, like how quickly he became part of this team. We talked about trades are hard. Adjustments are difficult. Most teams did really poorly. There were no stars at the trade deadline. And I mean, Lane Thomas, right now, he's been worth every single penny.
Yeah, whatever happens with Jose Tena, whatever happens with Rafael Ramirez Jr., Alex Clemmy can hit his peak. Ramirez can hit his peak. Doesn't matter. I mean, like you said, this team would not be in the wild. They would not be in the division series. They'd not be in the championship series without him. And that's worth it. Maybe they do or don't win the World Series and whatever. But like the fact that what he's done in September and October so far makes it worth it, because this is what it's all about. Farm systems are used for two things. A, it's developing players for you to play for you internally, and it's also developed for you to be able to trade for guys and fill in the missing gaps on your major league team. That's a big component of a farm system. It's not just guys who you want to graduate to your major league team. It's guys who you also want to trade. So he was able to do that for Lane Thomas, and he filled a big void for them. And it took a while for it to work out, but it did end up working out for them. And whatever those other guys do is great, but this is why you make those trades, to win in the playoffs. That's why whenever it does hurt to make one of those trades, you hope that it becomes an Andrew Miller or Lane Thomas situation. And credit to the front office for seeing that. Credit for Lane Thomas for coming through and battling through that adjustment period. And credit to the team for sticking with him and being patient, which, a lot of people haven't been patient, and it's hard to do. And, oh, by the way, that was only Lane Thomas's first postseason series ever. Hits a home run the very first pitch he sees. Hits a grand slam that decides the series off of the best pitcher in baseball in 2024. Just, no big deal. In the playoffs, you need your stars to be stars. Jose wasn't really a star in the first round. Quan was a star in the first round. The other guy that, people didn't think was a star was Lane Thomas, but guess what? He showed up as one anyway. We're going to talk about Jose Ramirez, the bullpen in Game 5, beating Tarik Skubal. We haven't really got into that for Game 5 as well. And just the history of this team in the first round, and before we get into the LCS in the next episode. So lots of fun stuff to stick around for on a 2-episode day of Locked On Guardians.
But first, let's talk about our good friends over at Ibotta. I love a sponsor who comes back, because that means we did a good job and they want to come back and continue talking to our fan base, our listeners. And, right now the deal with Ibotta, IBOTA, is, that there are so many things you buy, and it's going to help you get cash back every time you shop. There are not hundreds of items, from grocery to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you are beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 a year. I could cover the entire shopping trip, or that flight you've been eyeing, or a fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you earn cold, hard cash that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or gift card. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5. That's free money for just trying Ibotta. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use that code LOCKEDONMLB.
This has been a crazy October already. You got Guardians, Yankees coming up. You got Dodgers, Mets going on right now. The division series were crazy. If you want a national perspective on all of that, and you want a little bit more on things that have happened, things that are going to happen in the playoffs, check out Locked On MLB with our pal Sully, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jose Ramirez didn't show up as a star, Jeff, in the first round. He did hit, a home run. He did drive in a scoring
Got the first
decision.
run across.
He did get the first run across in Game 1, which was important. It was a little bit official score, Aiden, let's be honest. But the home run was big, obviously, in Game 4 to get them going and get them back on top, and they needed every bit of that. What he did do, Jeff, has put his money where his mouth is in the first round. According to Hector Gomez via Carlos Baerga. This is through Carlos Baerga. Jose Ramirez apparently offered his teammates $1,000 for each home run in Game 5, as well as $500 for each RBI in Game 5. So, in other words, Lane Thomas cleaned up on Saturday.
Yes.
He earned himself an extra $1,000 and earned himself an extra $2,500. So $3,500 for Lane Thomas on Saturday if Jose's paying out. I don't think Jose cares. Jose drove in a run the hard way with that hit by pitch, and then Lane Thomas came in and hit Jose's wallet. And if that's true, I'm sure Jose's never been so glad to pay for something. How about that? I know people are going to probably wind up making some sort of payroll comment based off that. I don't even know if it's true. I mean,
it's probably true, but
Baerga,
like, it's also funny how much like guys we think all of these players make so much money, like how much is like 1,000 really drive, but I'm sure like there is extra incentive. It's like $1,000 is still a decent amount of things you can buy with that. Like I would gladly take an extra $1,000. Jose, I know I didn't do anything, but yeah, it's
we were here the whole step away. What are you talking about? We were here every game. We did something.
I don't think like that's, if someone takes the payroll thing, like that's just low hanging fruit. So I would just say move on with your life and learn to enjoy things.
But Jose was very confident, and that really helped out. That is the most vocal leadership, not the money thing, but the most vocal external leadership we've ever heard from him, I want to say.
Yes.
Like internally, we can't really say anything because a lot of what he says behind closed doors, or just, when reporters aren't really like recording or talking, you see the funny stuff he says in the locker room. And he's always working with hitters in the dugout, and guys are always coming in for advice. That's all internal. But in terms of external vocal leadership, because of the language barrier, all that kind of stuff, this is the most I think we've ever heard from him. He had the interview with MLB Network after Game 4, or was it Game 1? I can't remember when it came with Harold Reynolds and Yonder Alonso, and Harold was like,
I think it was after Game 4. I want to say it was after Game 4.
Okay, and Harold was like, I want your chain. He goes, well, I'll give it to you when we're in the World Series. And I think Matt Vassurgeon was like, tell him he's a stone cold killer. And Jose was like, I know, I'm a stone cold killer. That's what he told Yonder Alonso. Yeah. But then they were asking in between Game 4 and 5 during the media day that, how do you guys feel about facing Tarik Skubal a second time, and what you're going up against to have to move on and facing him? And he was like, yeah, he's a great pitcher, but ask him how he feels about facing us another time. And Jose has always been supremely confident, and he should be, obviously. Look where he came from and look where he is. But he had confidence in his teammates. Like he's very confident in his group. He's behind his guys. And for him to say that and say, like, Tarik Skubal's a great pitcher, and we lost to him in Game 2. That's great. And they had chances in Game 2. But ask him how it feels facing us a second time. And guess what? They made him make mistakes. Like they missed an opportunity where Riley Green gave them one. And those are the kind of things that usually cost you a series when you don't take advantage of those mistakes, when there are so few. But they came back, and then Skubal hits Jose, and David Fry hits that squibber. And Lane Thomas steps up, and finally Skubal makes a mistake for the first time in months. Like, Jose's 100% right. Ask him how it feels to face them a second time. They did the unthinkable. Detroit came in and got a home run off Emmanuel Clase that made this more than a 3-game series, and he struggled, and he gave up a run in Game 4 too. But Cleveland came back and did something I think is even harder in facing. I mean, to say it's harder to score off Skubal than Emmanuel Clase is crazy, because Clase's ERA was lower.
Equally bits hard.
Yeah, that's fair. But Jose was confident in his team, and hitting Tarik Skubal has not. I mean, someone said that was the first Grand Slam he's ever allowed in his career. I don't know if that's true.
No, at least in his major league career, yeah.
That's great leadership from Jose and great resilience from this team.
And that's why you go get Lane Thomas. I said it when they made that trade. I know that was more of a segment one thing, but that dude for his career versus left-handed pitching has the same weighted runs created plus as Bryce Harper for his career. It's like he's Bryce Harper versus lefties, and they know he loves that first pitch. Both of his home runs were first pitch. They've got the book, and he took care of business. And you can't help but wonder too, like how much that was set up by Jose. Like Jose getting hit, getting that run across. Yeah, I know that wasn't his choice, but it's like, he was in there and made Skubal a little bit extra nervous with the bases loaded there. He misses inside, hits him. Now the game is tied. All that stuff starts to mount. I'm not saying that Skubal's crazy. I'm just saying that is more and it's a guy who's never been in this type of pressure-filled situation. He has just gone out and kicked butt and never really had to face that moment of adversity. and it got turned on him. And now credit to him, the next inning wasn't it? He required 6 pitches to get out of it. He is darn good, but they did enough in that moment. And I think part of just Jose's aura, if you will, helped get you there.
I still remember the interaction that he had with reporters that was written about after the Lane Thomas trade. He didn't even know about it. And somebody asked him about the trade deadline, what you thought. And he goes, I didn't even, he said, I didn't even hear who we traded for. Who did we get? And someone in the beat group said Lane Thomas. He said, oh, okay, good player. Just simple as that. He's like, all right, good player. He was satisfied with that. He
didn't know the team, so a lot of people read into it. It was interesting because the number of people read into it. Jose doesn't even know who he is. I'm like, guys, Jose knows who everyone is. Jose is a baseball rat. He may not think it's important to know the team because he's not going to face Lane Thomas being with the Nationals all that often. But I guarantee you, when Jose is saying good player, that's because he actually knows the player profile. I spent time around Jose in the minors. Jose has always been in Jose world, for lack of a better word. There are certain things he pays attention to and think when they had the times for English on the board, Jose had a separate time because he wouldn't show up to the group one and he wouldn't show up to a special time either because it wasn't what mattered to Jose, right? Jose does his own thing, but he is knowledgeable. He lives and breathes baseball. So a lot of people viewed it as this negative jab on Lane Thomas. I'm like, no, he knows who Lane Thomas is. Trust me, Jose knows who every single player in baseball is. He may not know what team the guy is on right now because that doesn't matter. It only matters who he is facing that day and who he is facing regularly. So I just wanted to throw it out there because Jose is just he's different in the best possible way. He's built different, but he also just thinks a bit different and operates in a Jose world, which you can do when you're a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, there really is nobody like Jose. He marches the beat of his own drum. He's confident. He's always been very confident, and the guy just goes out there and does what he does. But yeah, he was happy with that trade. I think he would have been happy with anybody they added. Truthfully, I mean, this is why do you think Travis Bazzana was so obsessed with Jose Ramirez? That's the guy who, when I talked to Travis back in August about who he likes watching and players he likes. And when I asked him about, okay, what do you like about Jose? His just was a totally different conversation. He was always energetic and upbeat in that conversation, but it was even noticeably more pronounced when you asked him about Jose. He is obsessed with Jose because that's the kind of guy he wants to be. And that's why Jose is a leader, even though we don't always see it vocally. And he didn't really have the best LDS, but in our second episode, I know we'll be talking a lot about him in the LCS. All right, we got more to talk about. Pitching decisions from Game 5, the Guardians' offense at the end of the game, guys that weren't expected stars as well, other than Lane Thomas. So much to go through from Game 5 before we get into the LCS and episode 2 of today's Locked On Guardians double feature. NFL fans, get the season started or going with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more in the same place where you place your bets. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I took an absolute bath on FanDuel Saturday. Probably the worst I've ever had. I smashed the under on Guardians Tigers. Wrong. I took the over on Ohio State, Oregon. Wrong. I took Oregon or Ohio State against the spread. Wrong again. So when I come at you with FanDuel advice, take it with a grain of salt. We'll talk about Game 1 bets in another episode. But here's some advice I can give you that is going to be good if you are going to get started on FanDuel. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So that's $200 just right into your account on FanDuel when you place your first $5 bet. We have never gotten an offer like that from FanDuel. So before this offer is gone, I encourage you guys, this is one bet I can't steer you wrong on. If you have not bet on FanDuel yet, throw that $5 down on any bet, and you'll see $200 guaranteed in bonus bets show up in your account. That is FanDuel.com. All the postseason action can be found on your SiriusXM app. Just search Guardians to hear that broadcast. You can also search Yankees if you want to hear that broadcast. I don't know if you want to do that or not. And Dodgers Mets, that's on there too. All the action, all postseason long on the SiriusXM app. Just search for the team or game you're looking for. pulling Matthew Boyd after 2 innings was quite the choice. I mean, I will say, like, we've seen this in past postseasons. Just because a guy has been rolling doesn't mean he will keep rolling. That is not predictive. You have to watch every at bat. You have to read swing decisions. You have to look at how guys are performing against him, how long his at bats have been. There are so many things to analyze, and you've got to make quick decisions too. You can't sit there for hours on end, and you don't have that much time to decide. Okay, well, Matt Boyd threw 5 strikeouts in 2 innings and a lot of hit. It was only 1 hit, but how hard are they hitting outs? You don't have a whole lot of time to make those decisions, so you've got to take the information you've seen from hitters and make that decision. That being said, it doesn't matter what we would have done. It worked out. I felt like Matt Boyd probably could have gotten another inning, and you could have pulled him this first sign of trouble. But then again, did you want to bring Cade Smith in with traffic? You probably could have, but maybe it's better not to. I don't know. It worked out, so this doesn't really matter, but it mattered in terms of it mattered to me how stressful it was to get to the end of the game. Like, getting to Class A at the end of the game was like, okay, how are they going to do this? Because things went wrong with Andrew Walters and Tim Herron, and Gaddis got pushed hard again like he did in Game 4, like we didn't expect. So it worked, but it was gut-wrenching to watch them have to gut through the rest of the game like that.
Yeah, it was. You didn't feel comfortable, even though they had a 5-1 lead, and for good reason. Like the Tigers kept making it closer and closer, and that's why adding on more runs just mattered so much in this one. But yeah, you can debate the Boyd of it all. It just stunk that Walters just completely didn't have it. I mean, all the walks. I'm a little bit surprised we didn't see Cantillo after we saw him in a bullpen role earlier. Like, I thought there was definitely a point where, like, I almost would have gone to him instead of Cade, just because that's what allowed them to bring in Kerry Carpenter, right? Like, I would have pushed to delay that in general. But yeah, you got to trust your stars a little bit more, and you're going to have to in the next round because you just don't have quite the same amount of gapping. So you can't do this again. Like, this was fine. And it's the same reason this Detroit would have been in serious trouble in the next round, just like Cleveland has been. Cleveland had 25 innings of their 45, more than half the innings went to the bullpen in this series. Like, you can't do that again. Like, it just won't work. You don't have the natural spacing to allow that to happen. So it's going to be interesting to see how they approach, this round. You almost have to trust your starters a little bit more.
Yeah, no doubt they will have to trust their starters a little bit more, and we'll get to that in the LCS preview episode. But yeah, Cade Smith came in, and I don't think I think he faced, no, he did. You're right. They did bring in Carpenter right away to face Cade Smith. So kind of shocking they did that, and that Cade Smith came in that early, and like that's even earlier than what Tito did. Like, they were going, I thought 3 innings. I can understand 3 innings, and Boyd only threw 33 pitches. Didn't get a hard hit ball. If you go by StatCast, like, he didn't get a hard hit ball.
5 out of 6 too.
Yeah, he sure got 5 out of 6. So it was 1 hit by, what was it? Riley? No, he hit Riley. He walked Riley Green. Who had the first hit off him? Was it Spencer Torkelson?
I'm trying to remember. Like, there was a little bit of danger with him, and then he just kind of
Meadows for the double off him.
That's right. But he worked through it. Like, that's the thing. Like, he was able to bounce back and just kind of end up being.
Nobody squared him up. There was not a hard hit ball off him. He had the walk. He had the hit by pitch. So yeah, it could. That could have been an absolute disaster. This is maybe a case where process or results outweighed process, and that's fine because in the postseason, results matter. Over the long-term process, and we can say this maybe not a good process going forward, but I think they're pretty aware this is not going to work in an LCS. Like, you're going to have to approach it very differently. I think the good news, though, is like Sobrowski made his first appearance. I mean, he made 2 in the series, but he came in, was fine, and he walked a batter. Maybe Walters got some stuff out of his system in that outing. Eli Morgan, how about that? We should talk about Eli Morgan real quickly. You've been stumping for him for a couple months now. Eli Morgan, they had no choice when they pushed Hunter Gaddis to 31 pitches. They had no choice. Your options were Eli Morgan or Joey Cantillo or Gavin Williams, and one of Cantillo or Gavin had to be saved just in case you went to extra innings. Eli Morgan, huge 2 outs, both strikeouts. That's good. I mean, he didn't really pitch all series. He gave up a run, I think, after pitching or after what was it, Class A blew the game the other day.
Yeah, no,
that was a big outing for Eli Morgan.
Was it? Yeah, it was in the game 3, but it was
it 2 or 3?
It was game 3. He gave up a run. Okay. Yeah, because it's the game. I remember I had to then go do a training, and I'm like, I saw long enough to be like, okay, Morgan's not getting it done here. This is not what we need. But
yeah. So Eli was great in this series. Good for him. And then Rocchio and Kwan. I mean, I know Thomas ends up being kind of the de facto LDS MVP for 9 RBI, but
yeah,
Kwan scored a ton of runs. Rocchio was always on base. That play in I forget what was it, the 8th inning, the first at bat, I think it was Jake Rogers.
Yeah,
Rogers. The bottom of the Tigers order, man, was a pain in the rear end because Meadows was really good when he got moved down to the 7th in the order, and then Jake Rogers and Trey Sweeney gave them trouble a couple of times throughout the series. Again, credit Rocchio. He had a great series offensively, defensively, every which way. And we talked about the Venezuelan championship he won out there, a couple of years ago as a big driver of this. So they would not be moving on to face the Yankees without Brian Rocchio. And then Stephen Kwan. I mean, how about him coming back at the absolute right time with his best stuff? Like, we weren't sure what kind of version of Stephen Kwan you're going to get back off the injury with a bad back, considering he had been struggling in the entire second half for the most part. And yeah, he's not ripping extra base hits. He's not the guy who was hit 14 home runs in the regular season that showed like some new pop. He's been mostly a singles hitter in this postseason so far. But the most important thing for him to do is get on base and run the bases in front of the middle of the lineup, and that's what he did in this 100%. First round.
Yep. I think we've pretty much handled this one. I think we're ready to take our break, come back, and record again so we can talk a little bit about this Yankee series before it starts.
Yeah, if you enjoyed this episode covering the ALDS, you're going to enjoy the championship series one, right? Because that is not going to be stressful or agonizing at all. I'm sure it's going to be just lots of fun and very easy. We can already start buying our World Series tickets, right? No problem.
Sure.
No antacids needed.
Thank you for watching. Remember, rate and review, download. It helps. Thank you for everyone who joined us, Tigers or Guardians fans, and go Guardians go.